Welcome to Empire Building. I'm Wendy Papazan, and together with my 4 co-hosts, we bring you weekly unfiltered conversations about leadership, growing a big empire, and living on your own terms.
I'm Kimber Levitt-Keaty. We are investors and wealth builders with over $75 million in combined net worth.
I'm Sarah Reynolds. We are visionaries who built more than 50 businesses with over $122 million in annual revenue.
I'm Tiffany Fikes. We've led thousands of people and do it all while being pretty good moms.
And I'm Seychelle Van Poole. We are your podcast to learn how to build big businesses and even bigger lives.
Hi, it's Tiffany Fikes here with my amazing co-hosts, Sarah and Seychelle, and we are excited to be bringing you another Empire Building podcast episode. Ladies, how are you?
So good, and also stressed. If I'm being honest, it's yes and so good. And I don't know about you guys, I've been working really hard on regulating cortisol levels, and I know, Sarah, you've been doing some research on this too. How are you guys dealing with stress and cortisol and all those fun things these days?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a good bit of stress going on. I actually just got back from a pretty awesome experience where I went to a health and wellness retreat and resort where everyone asked you about your stress level and your health and your wellness and your sleep. And then you sort of get used to it after a few days, and then you get to the airport and it's back to and then you're like, wait, what's going on? Not every person I'm talking to cares about my stress level and my sleep. What?
I can imagine going from there to the airport. That would be so jarring. I never thought about it before, but
yeah, they said something about you're about to get a cultural shock, and I didn't know what they were talking about. And then when I got to the airport, I was like, oh my goodness, they're right. I'm this is crazy of a difference. But yeah, it's definitely a more stressful time to be a business owner right now, to be an empire builder, given especially most of us, right, that are listening and then also that are hosting the podcasts are in the real estate business. And the real estate industry has been in a recession for quite some time now, actually.
Yeah, 2.5 years.
Yeah. So yeah, stress is real. We have an episode that talks a little bit about this, don't we?
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. Tiffany wrote a really good one around how our brain works and our amygdala, and also how to work on stress in our nervous system and how to redirect some of those things. So we'll put, I think it's a 2-part, right, Tiff?
Yep.
I think It's a 2-part. So we'll put that in the show notes too, because it was a really good episode.
I think this is a good example of even us as hosts, we probably need to re-listen to ourselves sometimes. And so I put that
Always
down to
something
listen
to
to this weekend. Yeah, let's re-listen to this topic. So what are we talking about today?
Yeah, well, talking about a different market and a different buyer and what we need to really know about how to win with today's buyers. Because I think a lot of us are running around thinking we're serving the buyer of 2020 or 2023 or, even 2018. We're dealing with a completely different buyer. And we've referenced this before, but if you haven't been in real estate for at least a decade, this is a new experience. This is a new kind of buyer because they're not rushed.
Yeah.
They're not, totally financially motivated to act really, really quickly. And that has to change the way that we serve them, the way we communicate, and how we build trust with them. So today we are digging into how to lower your cortisol by really understanding what's inside the head of today's buyer and how to change your strategy.
I love that. And we had such a good response from our 2-part seller series that this is actually going to be a 2-part buyer series on how to serve more buyers in today's market. And I want to encourage you, even if you're not in the real estate business, to keep listening because there are so many good takeaways that apply to other industries as well. So let's dive right in. The first thing is we want to understand today's buyer's mindset. So the mindset of today's buyers is different than the mindset from 2-3 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a few reasons for that, right? The first is there's really no FOMO in this market in terms of their mindset, right? And so there's a lot of options. There's more inventory. Buyers know that more inventory is even coming and that they can actually afford to wait. So there's more coming, and they also like have a lot to choose from right now. I'll never forget when Olivia, she's my oldest, was younger, and I told her to get ready for the day, and she still hadn't come out of her room dressed. And I was like, what's going on? And I go into her room and I see her standing in front of her underwear drawer, staring at 30 pieces of underwear. I know this is weird, but like a lot of options. And she was literally like frozen. Like there are so many options. Like, which one am I supposed to pick?
Yeah.
And that's today's buyers. They're standing in front of a drawer of houses and like there's a lot of options. Okay. So they're not experiencing the FOMO, the fear of missing out.
That's normal consumer behavior.
Yeah.
When you have 2 options, it's easy to make a choice. When you have 30, it takes
difficult.
so much willpower to feel like you're making the right choice. So that is normal consumer behavior. When there's options, it's harder to make a decision.
And we've got to know how they're thinking right now, right? And I should have said that right in the beginning, but so critical that we're putting ourselves in the shoes of the consumer, right?
Yeah.
And then when we do that, we know so much more of how to serve them, right? So there's not really like that FOMO feeling. So that FOMO typically will create a higher sense of urgency, but they don't have that, right?
Yeah.
And then with that, like, huge drawer of houses, basically, they are also feeling like really burnt out in terms of decisions, right? So they've got decision fatigue. There's so many houses, styles, neighborhoods. They really feel stuck, like they don't know what to do.
And I think too, you know, as agents, when they're like in our market in Dallas-Fort Worth, they're at the bottom of the market. There were 4,600 homes to choose from for 7.2 million people. And today we have 36,000 houses to choose from for 7.2 million people. And as a real estate agent, when there's 4,600 homes to choose from, there is no choice. Do you want this one house or not? That's it. You don't have to have any of these conversations. And so part of the reason why we're trying to help share the buyer mindset is you're actually having to guide them through this process much more as a leader than as a follower of the market. And so the reason why Sarah is really honing in on this is because you're going to have to be much more consultative and much more the leader of this process in order to help the buyer navigate the decision fatigue, in order to navigate all the choices that they have.
Yes. What I like to say on our team is we're not order takers. We make it happen. We lead, right? And if you are an order taker, you're going to make order taker money.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a make it happen, right, which is low, right? Like an Uber driver is an order taker, right?
Mm-hmm.
I need to go here. Take me here. Right? They know what you want. They take you there, right? They're not making it happen in terms of leading you. So this takes leadership. And the big thing about leadership is we need to know what they're feeling, what they're going through. Okay. So the third thing that they're going through that's impacting their mindset is interest rate weariness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of current homeowners, they might have 2 to 4% interest rates. So like they're trying to think like, is it worth trading up and having such a high interest rate compared to what I have currently, right? And then they're also feeling this sort of sense of disappointment and like sort of down on themselves. Like I should have bought when the interest rates were lower, right? And so like there's no FOMO, decision fatigue, interest rate weariness, right? And then the big thing, go ahead, Tiff.
Well, I was just going to say about that, like when people feel like they've made a mistake, they are more likely to not want to make another mistake. So they would rather go into inaction. And so when a new buyer is all the interest rate talk is about, oh, interest rates were so great 3 years ago. And they are kicking themselves and saying, I wish I'd bought 3 years ago. Oh, did I make a mistake? In their mind, heading into this new decision, they don't want to make another mistake because they don't want to feel that pain.
That's so good.
Recognizing that makes them freeze too, because I've made a mistake. I don't want to make another one. That just leads into more of that.
That's right. That's right. And so with that, like the other thing too is like they're feeling like information overload, right? So there's no FOMO. They're really tired from not knowing like what decision to make. They have interest rate weariness. And then there's so much information, right? Zillow, Redfin, YouTube, TikTok. And many times too much information actually leads to a lack of confidence, not more confidence, right? And knowing who do I follow? Like when there's so many people saying different things, like One expert says don't buy. Another person says to buy. Like, what do I do when I don't know what to do, right? That's what they're feeling. And then the last thing that they're feeling in their mindset is they're afraid. The media is still pushing a certain narrative in terms of like, wait for it to crash. Like, you don't want to be buying at the wrong time. And so today's buyers are going through a lot. Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot that they're going through, and that we need to make sure that we understand that before we focus on serving them at such a high level.
Love it. So that's your job, is to help meet them, understand where they are, and move them towards the right decision for themselves, which may or may not be buying a house. But you want to help them make a decision. I was in a class with Phil Jones, and he was like, your job, no matter what industry you're in, if you're in sales, you're a professional mind maker upper. You're just trying to get them to make up their mind.
Yeah.
And so how can you do this? Questions. Like your ability to help them vocalize the truth of their reality and then layer on information that aligns with what they've said is your ability to make them feel good about making a decision. So, one of the other things, you want to ask enough questions before you give any advice so that you can say, because you said this, this, and this, I believe this is the right move for you. Because if you just say, this is the right move for you, you're not trustworthy. You're just another voice that Sarah was talking about. And so we need to get really good at asking the right questions to help you and them self-discover what is important so that you can have earned the right to say, because you said this, this, and this, here is what my advice is on next steps.
Love so that. Good, Tiff.
So let's guide them from hesitation to clarity, because it won't feel pushy. This isn't pushy. This is helpful. You are doing a service that they are going to be so gracious for.
I love that. Well, I say to our clients all the time with our team is our job is to ask the right questions so that when you're standing in the perfect home, you know it's the perfect house because we have clarity around that. And if we don't ask you the right questions, you could be standing the perfect home right in the middle of the living room and none of us know it because we didn't have clarity around what you really wanted. So I love that we're diving into this because I think this helps that client have clarity and confidence when they're making that decision.
Love it. So to really understand the buyer, this is what you need to know. A great question that I like to ask is, what do you know about the current market? Instead of just start talking about the current market to them, ask them, what do they know? Because it will help you understand, where are they? Which of those things that Sarah mentioned, are they experiencing? So what do you know about the current market? What would make you feel 100% confident to move forward? That's a question you can ask standing in a house. Honestly, versions of that question I ask in every house. Like, what would it take for you to move forward with this house? Well, nothing. I hate the kitchen. Okay, tell me more about that. What do you hate about the kitchen? Digging in and really understanding what would make them feel confident. Another great question, especially at the beginning, we actually ask this question in our pre-meeting survey. And that is, what do you expect from your real estate agent? Because that can help you understand, can you meet their expectations? Do you want to work with them? And it also helps you, if you do want to work with them, how to make sure you're winning with them and blowing it out of the park.
Another powerful question that I think, so we want to think about like the feelings. Humans have feelings and then they act, right? Mm-hmm. And so like tying the questions to the feelings are also super powerful. So when we know they're feeling afraid, right? Asking like, hey, what's keeping you up right now at night regarding your home purchase? And trying to understand like what specifically, don't assume, like what's keeping them up? Like what are they afraid of in terms of it? And I don't like to say, what are you afraid of? Because typically people, when we ask that, like that, I'm not afraid,
Yeah.
It's what's keeping you up right now in terms of your home purchase, right? When you know the answers to these, you then know how to address them later, which then you're playing offense versus defense. But when you find out they're afraid of something later that you didn't know, you then are playing defense. And when we play defense with sales, we typically will lose. When we play offense, we win. Okay, so knowing ahead of time what's keeping them up is super powerful too.
Love it. Seychelle, what questions do you like to ask?
Well, I love the ones you guys have given. Another one that I like to ask is either how do we win with you or how do we lose with you? If somebody has already worked with another person in the past, I'll say, what went really well during that experience you want to repeat? Or what's a reason why you didn't call that person and we're sitting here at your kitchen table today as to why we're meeting together? I think another one, too, is really trying to get into their perspective of helping them prioritize. I'm hearing a lot right now of buyers giving us like a list of 10, 20 things that they want in their home. And that's overwhelming, quite honestly, because they have given us not just like a unicorn, but now it has like a pot of gold and a rainbow, maybe a double rainbow. And then there's like a lake in the end with it's actually an ocean, but it's fresh water. It's crazy. And so that is setting up for unrealistic expectations. So really trying to help them narrow down to the top 3 or the top 4 things that it absolutely must have, and then what the negotiable items are, and gaining clarity on that up front and asking for permission to point those out during the process.
Yeah, I love that. We actually, at the end of them telling us all the things they want in their house, we'll let them tell us 25 things.
For sure. Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, if this house could only have 5 things, out of all of that, what are the 5 that are the most important? And then we say, okay, now, if you had to give up one of those, which one is it going to be? And just walking them through the thought process that they might have to give up something that was a non-negotiable for them helps them when they're in the house. And you're able to, like you said, Seychelle, point out, this has everything except for that garage. And I know you want the garage, but you said you were willing to give it up. And this is the price and the neighborhood and the, X, Y, and Z that you wanted. So I love that.
I think a really powerful thing, I love what you each are saying. And I think it's also really powerful to dive really deep into when they say those 4 things, so after they've given up the one, okay, why must you have 4 bedrooms? Because what I have found is many times they'll say 4 bedrooms, but they need one as an office.
That's right.
Okay. What are your thoughts on finding a 3-bedroom house with a main level den or a main level? Oh, that works. Okay, perfect. But if you don't know the why behind what they're saying, then it's really hard to guide them, because it's typical that a buyer is not going to get exactly what they said that they want, right? And so when you know the why, you can help guide them along the way. And so all of this you want to do in this initial conversation. So we put ourselves in their shoes, and then you're asking questions at that initial meeting with them.
I love that. One other question that I absolutely love is oftentimes people are making a move for one of life's major reasons, right? A birth, a death, a marriage, a divorce, a new job, a loss of a job, a baby. There's something that's prompting that. And so I always like to say, is there any major life event that's happening right now with you that I need to know about as a part of our process? Because I have been shocked where they're have said nothing, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, we just found out we're pregnant. Or, I'm moving for a new job and I have no idea actually where, any of these places are that I'm telling you I really want to live, or whatever it is. It's I didn't know that you had lived with your parent for the last 5 years, helping them through, a major health event. And this is your first time getting your own place for yourself again. Those are such important things for us to know, because it allows us to have compassion on what someone's going through, but also help talk them through that psychological part, which is part of our job, whether we want it or not, in addition to making the decision for what house is going to be best for them.
The other thing that I think is helpful to know is, where are you getting information about the real estate market?
Mm-hmm.
To Sarah's point, their answer may be TikTok. You have no idea what that answer is going to be, and you need to know so that you can help them. And it isn't just, where are they searching for homes? The answer isn't your website or Redfin or, whatever it is. No, where are you getting your real estate information is such a good, because they also might say, oh, my dad helps with this. And you're like, note to self, Dad is going to be involved in this, and
Dad
I need to make
come
sure
on showings.
Exactly. Yes. I need to make sure that I am talking to Dad as well.
Yes.
So, it's that, take their answer, but ask deeper questions, because that's where you're really going to uncover the way to be helpful to them, because that's what this is all about.
I love that. That's awesome. So the next phase that we move into is where buyers can get surprised, because if we are not anticipating the things that buyers don't realize are going to happen in the process, we are setting ourselves up to follow, as we were talking about earlier. We're following the process instead of leading the process for the client. But I think we're also then not in tune with what's going to come up that could potentially cause issues, stress, or anxiety for the client. And, Sarah asked that question of, what's keeping you up at night? Surprises keep people up because they don't know what to anticipate and they don't know what's coming next. And so some of the things that are surprising buyers right now that are great for you to have proactive conversations around are, there's kind of two scenarios that happen with houses. The first one is the home that they're interested in, surprisingly, isn't flying off the market. It's actually sitting. And it's going to cause the buyer to say, well, what's wrong with it? Why don't other people want it? Right? So you need to kind of handle the conversation around that. But the flip side is, if it's a really cute, well-priced, updated home, it could have multiple offers on it. And that creates this tale of two markets, even in a shifted market, where buyers don't know what to expect when they're looking at a property. So if you can help set expectations around how a home is positioned and a home is priced, and you're talking to the agent so that you have that expectation around it, it helps them understand what to expect with each property that they're looking at. Because I think the assumption that I'm seeing right now is buyers feel like they can wait on every home. And the reality is that's not the case. We, in the same market right now, have homes sitting for 252 days, and we have homes that had 11 offers this weekend. So we have to be ready for that.
Well, and it's happening. A house sits on the market for 90 days and then there's multiple offers.
Yes.
It's happened twice in the last 2 weeks to one of the buyers that our team is working with. And it's you can't assume that because it's been sitting there for 90 days that it will continue sitting there. And so having that conversation with them, that the moment it's the right house, we need to jump on it, because you don't want to end up in multiple offers, because both of those houses that sat for 90 days went over asking. It still happens. And so that will help with the buyer's motivation when they understand that at any moment it can change for that one house.
Yeah, and I know we're going to dive into that in the second episode, a lot more of the actual when we're working with them. But one that I love on that, and I'm sort of giving a tease for the next episode, is that if we think that this is the best home on the market in this location for the price, other buyers will too. And so let's go back to the office. Let's look at what we think would be a fair offer, because I think this is one that we can get an awesome deal on and or can get for you. And so making sure that you're building some type of sense of urgency, because you have to lead, right? You got to lead them, as we said. And so you're not just waiting for them to tell you, but making sure that they know that other buyers could like it, even if it's been on the market 90 days. I think that's a powerful story, Tiffany.
I think that's very powerful. And I think, too, this is where fun, creative deals happen. And so, if a buyer has vision, or a designer, honestly, that has vision, or an agent that has vision, homes that need work that aren't selling for one reason or another, maybe it needs paint, or it's stale, or it needs a rework of some kind, those can be hidden gems of a negotiation opportunity that you haven't had before. Buyers often, I would say 5 to 10% of buyers actually have vision. The rest of them just like what they see. And so you have to help them through that surprise of this home actually is in the best part of the neighborhood and is the best price, but it needs these 3 things. Can you do that? And to help walk them through that, because I think it's surprising to them sometimes that just with a little something, right, a stale home that isn't getting any traction could actually be a magical little gem. And, I think the other surprise too that I'm seeing is buyers can get fatigued faster than they think they will. And so helping to set that expectation that if we're not finding something right away, we may need to reset expectations or talk about what the market really is doing right now to help get them back into reality with that.
Okay, so we've got the mindset of today's buyers. Questions build trust. They're afraid. They have a lot going on. They have a lot of questions. They have decision fatigue. When we ask questions, we then can play offense, okay? And then we need to know also what could surprise them along the way, right? And if we address that ahead of time versus in the moment, we win. Now, on next week's episode, we're going to go behind the scenes and help you know how to build trust, how to create a wow experience by reducing their stress in this kind of market. And so if this episode was helpful, please give us a 5-star review, share it with a friend. We did our best to help you put yourself in the shoes of today's buyers. Today's buyers are different than the buyers 3 years ago. So we have to adjust. We have to change. And then next week, we're going to share exactly what that means to create that wow experience. So thanks for joining us today. And we hope you have an amazing week, not just building a big business, but remembering to build that big life. Bye.
Bye, guys.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not Keller Williams Realty LLC and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information.